Your Dog's Friend is a nonprofit 501c3 whose mission is to help keep dogs out of shelters by educating and supporting their humans. We promote positive method of training and behavior modification through stress-free methods. As part of that mission, we offer free webinars like the one you're about to watch. Subjects range from dog behavior, stress-free training, and other tools to help you understand your relationship with your dog. If you liked the webinar, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Click the notification bell and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be notified when future videos are posted. Now enjoy the webinar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. It's on a topic that's very important, but it's not one that most of us know about, trigger stacking. But first, let me introduce you to our speaker, Amie Glasgow. Amie is the owner and trainer at Oscar-winning behavior in Baltimore and a founding member of Baltimore Force Free. She is an associate certified dog behavior consultant through the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, a certified separation anxiety trainer, and a diagnostics fun scent games instructor. As usual, please put your questions in chat. We will hold them until the end and we'll get to as many as possible. Some of you also may not realize that Your Dog's Friend is a nonprofit and that our free services, including these webinars, rely on donations. So please consider donating. Go to the homepage on our website and you'll see a donations icon in the upper right corner. We appreciate any amount that you feel capable of donating. And I am turning it over to you, Amie.
All right. Thank you very much, Deborah. As Deborah said, I'm Amie Glasgow. I'm the owner and head trainer of Oscar-winning behavior. I'm a certified dog behavior consultant and also accredited dog trainer through the IAABC, certified separation anxiety trainer, certified control unleashed instructor, family dog mediator, and fun scent games instructor, and probably a couple of other things in there because I like learning stuff. Today we're talking about trigger stacking, which is actually one of my favorite things to talk about because I feel like it just relates to so much that we experience. And when you start to look at life through the lens of understanding trigger stacking, it makes you much more patient with yourself, with your dog, with your friends, with your spouses, with your kids, everything. It really makes a huge, huge difference. So today we're talking about when here comes the boom, when triggers stack, how to predict and prevent your dog's explosions. So what is trigger stacking? Trigger stacking is when stresses stack on top of each other. The direct definition is trigger stacking refers to a phenomenon in which a dog experiences multiple stressful or scary situations within a short time span. As a result, the pup may feel overwhelmed and exhibit a large reaction to an otherwise minor stressor. That's a direct quote from akc.org. What that means is when you stack multiple stresses on top of each other, you tend to get the response of the explosion, the reaction that is equal to the sum of all of those parts, not just the individual stresses. People do it too. Interestingly, there does not seem to be a term for this in human behavior. I've asked numerous human psychiatrists and psychologists. The closest I could get was that it is related to executive function. But the example I always give for people is imagine one night there's a thunderstorm. It keeps you up all night. Your alarms don't go off or you sleep through them because when you finally get to sleep, you're so exhausted. Then you're running late and you chug your coffee in desperation and end up burning your tongue. You get in your car, there's huge traffic because everybody else was running late too. There's a minor fender bender, which makes you even later. You get into work, your boss yells at you. Then you walk past a coworker who says, "Hey, how are you?" And you snap at them. It's not that, "Hey, how are you?" is offensive, right? There's no reason to snap at them. That was very, very minor what happened. But you're not snapping at, "Hey, how are you?" You're snapping at the boss yelling at you and the traffic and the fender bender and the thunderstorm and the being tired and the tongue burning. All of those things stacking up, each of those individual smaller triggers that you could handle on their own stacked up, and that's when you actually lost control. It's the most wonderful time of the year, right? So as I think you can imagine, over the next 2 or 3 months, basically the entire country, if not world, is living in an almost constant state of trigger stacking. We've got holidays coming. We've got COVID that we're still dealing with. We've got family events and winter weather and all kinds of things. All of that stacks up on top of itself. Good stress is still stress, and it still stacks up. Technically, those are two different definitions. Stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. Eustress is positive stress. That's moderate or normal psychological stress, interpreted as being beneficial for the experiencer. But what that means is that good things still cause stress to our minds and to our bodies. So some examples of positive stress for humans, we see moving into a better house, traveling, starting a new job, getting married, new babies. All of those things we want to believe are good experiences, are positive things that people are excited about, or happy about, or looking forward to. And hopefully they are positive, but they still build up in the stress, and they still count when we're stacking up on those things. For dogs, dogs can also experience positive stress. Chasing squirrels or other animals that prey drive. Pardon me, I might have a dog trying to stick her tongue down my throat in just a second. If I suddenly sound garbled, that's why. Can you lie down, sweetie? Thank you. Competing in dog sports. Dogs hopefully enjoy the sports that you're doing with them, but it is still stressful on many of them, especially just the change in venue, going from your practice arena to the actual competition. If you have kids and they have friends over, even if your dog likes kids and likes having friends over, that can still be stressful. Just getting ready for a walk, pick up the leash, and most dogs start exhibiting stress signals, even though they are happy to do so. You see the mouths tighten, you see panting start happening, they start jumping and things like that. And play dates with doggy friends. Again, even social dogs. Just the interaction with someone that they don't see every day, the excitement of all of that, all of those things can be positive stresses. Trigger stacking might look like simultaneous triggers. So it could be what happens when you're out on a walk with your dog, and at the same instant that a skateboarder passes nearby you, a car horn honks and a friend bends down and pets your dog on the head. All three of those things are fairly minor stresses for many dogs, and it looks like your dog snapped because someone pet them on the head, when it was really that they snapped because someone pet them on the head at the same time a skateboarder passed by or car horn, and the car horn honked. It was really that all three of those stacked up together that caused the issue. Likewise, many of us expect our dogs to be nervous with, say, a dozen strangers at the house for a party. We've got multiple people. We've got noises that don't normally happen. We've got scents that don't normally happen from the dozen people and from the food involved. All of those things happen at the same time. That's trigger stacking. But trigger stacking can also be a more subtle, slower reaction. Instead of just everything piles up at once, boom, it can be a tick, tick, boom. So imagine Monday, you take your dog to the vet to get him cleared for training class. Tuesday, they go to training class and they have a great time. That's a positive stress. They had a lot of fun. Wednesday, nothing major happened. Maybe you rearranged the furniture. That's a change. Dog didn't really seem to notice, but it is a change in his home environment. And then Thursday, he just snaps and bites someone out of nowhere. Maybe they pet him on the head. Again, we're looking at that slow build of what's going on with those different triggers. I hear this a lot in my reactive dog classes, that people say their dog is great for 5 or 6 dogs, and then at the end of the walk, they start snapping at everyone. It's probably not that there's something specifically different about those dogs at the end of the walk. It's that the first dog stressed them out a certain amount, then the next dog stacked on top of that, then the next dog stacked on top of that, and so on and so forth until they crossed the line. And that's when we reached your dog's limit for trigger stacking there too. Why is this? Why is it that the reaction can be, whether or not the stack is simultaneous or if it's spread out over a certain period of time? The reason is because stress causes a chemical reaction. Stressors don't have to occur at the same time. They just have to occur before the chemical response from the earlier stresses have normalized. If everything is allowed to resolve without any additional stress, cortisol levels take about 72 hours to return to neutral. This little doohickey there is actually what a cortisone, the chemical looks like. I am not a scientist, can you tell? But that is cortisol right there. If additional stress is added, that normalization is going to take even longer than 72 hours. But think back to the little tick, tick, boom slide I had where, like, you go to the vet and then you go to class and then you just rearrange furniture and then you do this. I don't know about you all, but I don't think I go 72 hours without any kind of stressor, without somebody, running a red light or driving a little less friendly than I would like nearby me, or almost running into me in the grocery store. Even those little tiny things that I forget about within an hour, they still cause that chemical reaction in my body. And so it can still take other stresses longer to settle out. Because it's a chemical reaction, you might want to consider talking to your vet if your dog struggles with a lot of things. There's 2 types of medications that we talk about when we're dealing with behavioral medications. The first is event meds. Those are also called situational meds or as needed medication. Those enter the system pretty quickly, usually within half an hour, sometimes an hour or 90 minutes or so. They're really good for predictable triggers, for dogs who struggle with thunderstorms, for dogs who struggle with fireworks. For the most part, we can guess when a thunderstorm is going to come up. Chances are, if your luck's anything like mine, if you medicate your dog, it will pretty much blow the thunderstorm out of the way. But we do get weather reports that tell us when a thunderstorm's happening. We know that we're going to get fireworks on New Year's Eve. We know that we're going to get fireworks in my neighborhood from May to August to celebrate the 4th of July, things like that. So we can tell, okay, we've got this is when we need my dog to be medicated, because they enter the system quickly. They also leave the system quickly, usually within 6 to 8 hours, but they do require what I call medicine math. What that means is because they are more effective if you're starting with a fairly relaxed dog, you want to take them, you want to get them in your dog's system, excuse me, and fully effective by the time the storm starts, for example. Excuse me again. So you have to do that medicine math where you say, okay, the storm is supposed to get here at 5 o'clock. So I'm going to make sure that I've given her the meds by 4. Another option for medication is for daily medication. Those usually take 6 to 8 weeks to build up to full effect. They're a little better for more unpredictable triggers or dogs who are more regularly triggered. For dogs that their just general life is too stressful, you might look at daily medication. It does build up in the system. So while it's great to try and give them at roughly the same time of day each day, you don't have to sit there and say, well, the storm's starting at 5, so I need to make sure I've medicated at 4. That means I have to be home from work by 3:30. So there's no math needed for those. An option I'm seeing vets do a lot. Oh, I am sorry. An option I'm seeing vets do a lot is give you event medication while your dog is in the loading phase of the daily meds. So you see those behavioral effects of the event medication. And then when you're 6 to 8 weeks in of the daily meds, then you start lowering or dropping the event meds so that you're getting the benefit of medication as quickly as possible while you're still getting into what is possibly a more appropriate fit for long-term use. How can you predict how big that boom is going to be? Wow, excuse me. If you think of stress on a scale of 1 through 10, 1 is basically neutral. That's where your dog is resting, normal, they're not concerned about anything. They're still a dog. They're still able to get up, go get a drink. We're not looking for comatose behavior. We're just looking for not concerned about anything. And then let's say that giving them a bath when they start at that 1, giving them a bath puts them at, say, 3. They don't really like it. You have to like physically get them in the tub. Maybe they might be licking their lips while you're giving them a bath. They look nervous, but they're not doing anything bad. That puts them at about a 3. If I take my dog to the vet and they don't like it, maybe they need to be muzzled for their temperature or ears or whatever, there might be problem behaviors. They may actually snap at the vet. Let's say that puts them at a 5. If I add the 3 from the bath to the 5 from the vet, that's getting much closer to seriously concerning behavior. For things like up here, I have the dog essentially being hit by a car. I don't think any of us would be surprised if our dog bit someone after they've been hit by a car. We would know they're very stressed out, they're in pain, they're hurting, they're scared, they don't know what's going on. There's not much we can do to train, to prepare for recovering from being hit by a car. But if we think about adding up those other things that we've seen, if we say, I know how stressed my dog gets after a bath. I know how stressed my dog gets after a vet visit. I know how stressed my dog gets after another dog lunges at us on a walk. If we can drop all of those down, or even get their starting point to a lower level, we can help it happen so that they don't get all the way to the top as frequently. So again, we're looking at how things stack up here. And again, they don't have to happen at the same instant. They just have to happen before the dog has gone back to neutral. So even something as simple as the dog has to go to the bathroom, they're a little bit uncomfortable. You see a strange dog, so dad tightens up on the leash, and then that strange dog barks. That might not have added to anything in that moment. You might not see a big change, but that's two very small stressors added to a larger stressor, and then the dog goes to the vet, and then the dog blows up at the vet. Or there's a storm brewing and your dog is thunderphobic, and then they go to the vet. That storm brewing might be as stressful for your dog as having to go to the bathroom when dad tightens up on the leash, followed by a strange dog barking. Likewise, some dogs might not like having a stranger grab them to kiss them on the face, which some strangers will do to dogs. Mom gets home from work. That's exciting. It's a good stress. But then mom gives me a bath. That's stacking up on that. And then a guest comes over and pats me on the head. Again, boom, there. So you can see how those different things stack up, and you have to factor in how those all work to sort of prejudge how it is your dog is going to react. So we get it. We see that we are all living in a constant state of trigger stacking. And now that we feel good and awful about what we put our dogs through, what do we do to help it? If you can get each stressor to register lower on your dog's trigger scale, or lower your dog's baseline in general, which results in every resulting stress being lower, you will likely see a huge reduction in explosions. What that means is, let's say your dog starts at a 3. They're generally anxious. You live in a noisy neighborhood. They're new to your home. Any of those things that sort of mean the dog is never really 100% comfortable. If you can do something that brings that dog's stress down to a 1, it's harder to get them to a 3 or to a 4. If they're at 3, it takes very little to get them to a 4. So the first thing that you can do there is teach them to relax. And if you've seen any of my webinars in the past, I'm sure you've seen this video, because I really do this exercise for a vast majority of my clients. This is like doggy meditation. You're going to use treats to lure the dog into a down without cueing them or giving them a hand signal or anything like that. I don't want obedience down. I want just flop and make yourself comfortable. You're only going to treat often enough to keep the dog in the down position. We'll see 2 dogs in this video. It's about 10 minutes long total. And both of these dogs, it's their very first time doing the exercise. And I wanted to put this in there. I wanted this to be what you see, because when I'm teaching this to owners, I always caution them that this first time you're trying to get the dog in a down, it feels like 12 years to get your dog to down. Your brain is going, you lie down all the time. I ask you to lie down all the time. Why is this so difficult? It's because right now we're not asking clearly what we want, and they don't know. We don't want an obedience down though. So we do want them to figure it out some other way. And it almost always takes under 2 minutes, and it almost always feels like forever to get them to lie down the first time. But once they do lie down, you give them several treats there, and then they tend to chill out and figure it out much faster. This dog is Mowgli. He was staying at my house for a little while. He's a dog that sort of stresses down, so he kind of shuts down a little bit when he gets nervous. So he is very nervous here. And you see a couple of times where Heather, the trainer in the video, backs off and gives him a little bit of space when he starts getting nervous. So like right here, he starts going, I'm not sure why you're waving this hot dog at me. And so she just sort of backs off and lets him sit a little bit. And he moves towards her again when he's ready to re-engage. And because he does stress down, he sort of goes, well, let me just do less, which is exactly what we want. So she gets him into the down and then offers a couple of treats right away, and he figures that out. And this second dog is one of my dogs. This is also her first time doing this exercise, and she stresses up. So she looks over and says, oh my gosh, there's my mom. And you see her sort of jump up on me here. And you can tell right away, I think that even though she's not doing a lot, she's definitely a different energy than Mowgli. She's got a little more training, I would like to think, than Mowgli does. And so getting her into the down is a little bit easier because she's already tried those other things. It's getting her to stay down that's harder. So you can see there's a lot of movement. She adores Heather. She adores people in general. She's ridiculously cute, if I say so myself. But you see there's a lot of tail movement. There's a lot of wagging. You do not have to be holding the leash. Heather very nicely just moves where she can sit on it. If you're in your house and there's no chance that the dog's going to move away from you, you can not even have them on leash. But you may want to start, if you're doing it inside, you may want to start in like a smaller bathroom so that they do have to stay with you rather than wandering over to the other side of the living room or getting on the couch or something. And so once Elfie here learns that, oh, it's down you want, she's going to stay down. So she stays down a little bit more. And now if we watch her body language, her tail is going to start slowing down. If you're really paying attention to her breathing is going to settle. I believe she rolls over onto one hip. You do not want to treat the dog when they're staring into your eyes or staring at the food. This is not Jedi mind tricks are what make the food happen. And she's like, oh, hey, how about we make out some more? No, that's not going to work. Okay, fine. Really? I can make out with you? No. Bummer. Okay, I'll lie down. Good. And once she's done this a couple of times, again, Elfie's pretty well trained, and she's also like scary levels of smart. She very quickly figures out that it's way easier to just lie down than it is to jump up. So now, again, Heather's paying for more relaxed body postures. So if you notice, Heather's dropping a treat when her tail slows down. She got up there because she's looking for the treat, so we're not really worried about that. It's a piece of hot dog and it just bounced in the grass a little bit. So she stood up to look for it, and then she's going to go, oh, right, lie down. Got it. Okay. And then she's going to roll over onto a hip. Again, her tail slowing down there. What this does is really and truly teach the dog how to relax. It teaches them less is more. So you want to start doing this exercise in a place that's already fairly relaxing, so they have a high chance for success. And then you can do it in gradually more stimulating environments, taking them outside if you started it inside. In the olden days, I used to tell people to see if your vet would let you come do this in the vet waiting room. More vets may allow that in the future. They're sort of starting to come back to that, but we certainly had a good 3 years or so there where vets weren't able to do that, and that's understandable. But you could even do it in the vet waiting, in the parking lot, in the car, in the parking lot, anything like that. This really is like doggy meditation. If you do this enough, it brings them down calm enough that their starting baseline is a much more relaxed behavior. Just like meditation does for humans. You meditate and it means for the rest of the day, you're just a little bit calmer and a little bit more centered. The same thing goes for dogs. So Heather's doing a nice job again of treating when she's relatively still. When she looks away from Heather's hand, so she's not looking up at the person that she likes or the hot dog that she likes. Again, the food bounce, we're not going to do anything. We're going to let her get that. She earned that food. And then when she gets it, and then lies down again. Good. And so you saw there, Elfie rolled over onto one hip. I also really like doing this exercise because it actually turns into sort of human meditation as well. When you're teaching your dog this, it's very helpful if you can model the behavior. Try not to sit upright in like, I am doing obedience or anything like that. If you do need to speak to your dog, you want to speak to them calmly and say soothing things, and you sort of find yourself taking on that feeling as well of that nice relaxation. Teach them what to expect from other stressful situations. You see my little puppy there on the left. The scale is weird. It sounds weird. You step on the ground, it all gives a little bit. It makes a weird metallic sound in a strange medical smelling place. So see if your vet will let you go in and practice getting your dog on the scale and feeding. Make it so that they don't start their vet visit with something that's scary. They start their vet visit with something they're totally fine with. And that means the rest of the vet visit is starting at that lower point. You can go for snuggle visits as well. Same puppy, same visit, different tech there on the bottom right. Getting lots of cuddles. Vet visits are her social hour. She loves going to the vet. This lovely little girl in the middle here is a client of mine. She also loves going to the vet because typical pit bull, she loves her people, but she was so wiggly that they were having a hard time doing a blood draw with her because they could not restrain her. And restraint was very triggering for her. So we actually taught her family a chin rest. So you see she's got this washcloth, and that's her trigger. She puts her chin in the washcloth. And I like to teach a washcloth as the target for a chin rest because you can move the washcloth around. It's fine to have them learn to put their chin in your hand, but that takes up a hand. If we needed to, Jonathan here could have put the washcloth on his knee, and she would have been putting her chin on the knee and allowing him to have two hands free. In addition to teaching her that chin rest, mom was practicing going up to her with a ballpoint pen and doing a light poke in her neck near the jugular vein, so that the dog was learning it is perfectly normal for me to be resting my chin in dad's hand or on this washcloth, and then somebody's going to poke me with something cold and metallic that feels weird, but it's brief and it's not that big a deal, and I'm still getting the food. And we bring the stress down of all of that. And that means the final part of the blood draw was that actually the poke kind of hurts for a split second. And then it's there for a minute, if that long. It doesn't get as high up on that scale, on that 1 through 10 scale. So once she can do this very calmly, the rest of the vet visit goes very easily. In this dog's case, they went to the vet 1 week, contacted me and said they could not do a blood draw. What do we do? I had them come in, I think it was the same week. We did 1 session on this. They practiced for 1 week, and the next week, Toph was able to go to the vet and get a blood draw with basically 0 restraint. She put her chin on the washcloth. A vet tech reached over, did the blood draw. Nobody was holding her. She wasn't pinned down. It didn't take multiple people. And her vet visit overall was significantly less stressful. You can counter condition and desensitize to sounds as well. If your dog is worried about, an earlier slide with the car honking or things like that, there's YouTube is a veritable treasure trove of all kinds of weird sound effects and things like that. And you can teach them that those sounds just mean food is going to happen. There's a wonderful book and Facebook group led by Deb Jones, who is a PhD and does some really, really beautiful work with fearful dogs. And she works a lot with cooperative care and stress-free husbandry, which is taking the stress out of things like ear cleans and dental work and blood draws. Nail trims are another really common one that when you break down the steps of it and make it so that each step is a little bit less stressful, the whole thing overall is less stressful. If you teach them how to respond appropriately, Leslie McDevitt came up with these amazing games, the pattern games, and I think that they probably look at that as the most popular one, where you tell the dog there's something in the environment that's different, find it, acknowledge it however you need to, and then check back in with me. That's really a complicated thought process that we're asking our dogs to do, and they are perfectly capable of that complicated thought process. And it tells them all of that. It tells them, hey, heads up, there's something out there. So they have that moment to prepare themselves. They get the chance to look at it. They know they're not going to be punished for looking at it or have any difficulties with it. I'm just going to sort of back up and come back in and see if I can get those graphics to pop back up. Nope. Okay. But it tells the dog what we want them to do. Look at it, take your time, react however you need to. I'll have more on that in just a second. And then look back at me when you're done. It tells them all of that. And that amount of preparation of knowing how to react to this makes a huge, huge difference. Knowing how they are supposed to handle things helps. So the way we train this, we start with something neutral or positive. I like to tell people start with something that you can easily fit behind your back, So things like a cell phone, a TV remote, a small dog toy that the dog isn't over the moon excited about. You put that behind your back. You say, where's the phone? Where's the phone? Present the neutral object. The movement is very likely to draw your dog's eyes to it. So they're going to look at that. And then when they look back at you, you say yes, mark it by saying yes, or click if you want, and feed. So where's the? Bring it out, look, they look back at you, yes, and feed. It tells them how to respond. Now, we start with neutral objects or positive objects because I don't want them to think the cue where's the means there's danger coming. It just means something's about to change. It could be good. Look at it and come back to me. And if you do that exercise, and when they look at it, the dog loses their mind, they start barking or lunging or whatever it is they do, you're too close to the object that you're working with. So if it's look at the dog, and a dog pops from around the corner and then they're 3 feet away from you and your dog loses their mind, you're too close. You need to be far enough away that your dog is able to control themselves. And then they can start learning, oh, I can look at the dog and then look back at mom or dad, get a treat, and that's okay. That dog being over there is not a problem. It actually just means it's an opportunity for me to get a treat. So you want to be aware of how close you are to this other dog. Mail trucks are a good thing. You know, look at the truck, look at the trash truck, whatever. It can really be just about anything. The other thing is that Leslie had named the game Look at That, and has since said, I wish I hadn't named it Look at That, because we tend to take that very literally. In the beginning, you are thinking, I want the dog to look at the thing. So in the beginning, it was look at the dog. But then it became, where's the dog? Because it became, just acknowledge the dog. I just need to know that you know it's there. And what we know about dogs is that when they don't care about something, when something's a non-issue for them, they may not even look at it. So you all know your own dogs, and I'm sure that you know the experience of you saying something like, where's daddy? And them being like, you have bacon in your hand. I am not looking at that man over there. And the ear sort of flicks. That ear flicking counts as where's daddy or whatever. Likewise, sometimes there's just sort of like a slight lean where you know that they're saying it's over there, but can I have the bacon? Because that's really far more important to me. That's great. That's what we want. You have acknowledged that it's over there and that you don't care, that the bacon is the more important thing. That's the reaction we want to this. So feel free to feed that even if they technically have not looked at it, provided that they are actually acknowledging it and it's not a matter of, I'm just going to control myself and the only way I can do that is by convincing myself there is not a dog over there. Most people can sort of tell the difference once we really put that into words between their dog's two reactions. If your dog has behavior issues and you need further help with this, look for a Control Unleashed instructor. As I said at the beginning, I am one. I can help you find one closer to you if you need. There are a lot of pattern games out there. And Look at That may not be the only one that works for you. There are many out there and different dogs sort of click with different games. But again, the pattern games are all about teaching the dog specific patterns that say, this is a stressful situation, so I'm going to give you something comfortable that you know what to expect and you know how to handle these things. You can also teach your dog how to soothe, how to self-soothe themselves. I do not know why all of my graphics have vanished at this point. Hopefully things are clicking up and coming in soon. scent games are a great thing to help your dog self-soothe. And what I really like about scent games is there's zero physical limitations. It doesn't matter if your dog is overweight, underweight, really, really old, really, really young, has 3 legs, has 2 legs, is limping, anything like that. You can use scent to help them. They know once they learn scent games, they start learning what's expected. And so that gives them something comfortable to fall back on. You can set it up almost anywhere, and they are able to gather information without being forced into contact with whatever it is that's stressful to them. So if you're going on, for example, a long car trip, if your dog is bothered by car trips, as a lot of dogs are, bring a little lunchbox with bits of hot dog or something that dogs like. And when you get out at a gas station, go to the quietest place you can and hide 2 or 3 pieces of hot dogs and let your dog sniff them out. And that gives them a mental break from the stresses of the car. It gives them some time to use their nose to sniff things through and to gather information about where they are without any pressure, without any stress. It's just go ahead, sniff around, chill out. And by the way, there's hot dog at the end of this. So it's just a really simple, easy way to teach them how to soothe. You can do lots of formalized games for it. There are dog sports and dog titles that you can earn that are related to scent games and things like that. I often joke with my students that my scent games classes are Amie enrichment because they're just fun. There's no pressure. I don't care if your dog sits. I don't care if your dog barks. None of that matters. It's just about having fun, and the owners and the dogs and me all have a lot of fun. So I highly, highly, highly recommend scent games for basically every dog. Give it a try and see so many dogs really enjoy it. So again, how to get through those things that we're talking about. Again, there's multiple different ways to do it. You want to think about your dog's triggers and plan ahead. Your goal is to make each individual event less stressful, or to start your dog on a lower baseline themselves, or ideally both of those things. And that way, all of those things add up to a lower number. So let's say your dog starts on a 2 or a 3 as their baseline. Let's say 2 as their baseline. Having somebody go by on a skateboard would bring a dog from 1 to 4. So now we've got 2 plus 3 for the skateboard. So now we're at 5. And a car honking, that's another 1 to 4. So that's another 3. So that's 8. And then somebody patting the dog on the head, that topples them right over the 10. And they're just over the top, barking, lunging, trying to bite this person who's patting them on the head. If you start your dog's day with some relaxation protocol and bring them down to a 1, and you make it so that they are fine with skateboarders, and you do that with lots of practice with look at that, so that the skateboarder now only brings them from 1 to 2. And you do some desensitization and counter conditioning to car horns. And that only brings them to 3 now. So now we're only at 4 total. And then somebody patting them on the head, you've done lots of cooperative care, prepping them for that. So that only brings them to a 4. And now you're only at 7. Instead of that 10. You can see how it all brings it back down and makes things easier in general, and have less long-term issues with stress. We're helping the dog's nervous system, their heart, lungs, and all the organs inside that have difficulties that are caused by long-term exposure to stress. There's a lot going on when we just lower each of these little things, we're not even saying don't get it all stressed anymore. We're saying make everything a tiny bit less stressful, and it works out. I hope that answered a few questions about trigger stacking and how to get through it. I would love to hear some questions, anything you have about that. And I definitely want to thank again your dog's friend.
Amie, thank you.
Sure.
Here are a few questions.
Sure.
You kind of answered it, but not completely.
Okay.
How do we know the triggers are reset? Is that after a night's sleep?
No. So the cortisol technically takes, again, about 72 hours as an estimation. You kind of have to be familiar with your own dog and know what their baseline is, which can be very tricky. Sometimes it is more helpful to have a professional trainer come in. Quite honestly, even trainers have a hard time recognizing things in their own dogs. And so you will often hear a trainer say to another trainer, okay, look at my dog and tell me what's going on here. Because there's just emotion stuff that gets in the way. But you want to find out what your dog's baseline is and compare it in that way. It's not just an overnight thing. I wish that it was. Generally speaking, the less stress there is, the faster it's going to go away. Just, picture a full glass of water, and if it's all the way full, then it takes a little bit longer to empty out than it does if it's just a couple of drops of water left in the bottom of the glass. So it takes a while. You have to look at body language and see things like, is the dog muscle tension? Are they licking their lips? Are they tucking their tail a little bit more? Are they scratching themselves more, stretching, yawning? Any of those signals that can often mean stress. Are they doing that more than usual? And see how that goes. And just really being aware of what stressors your individual dog experiences and keeping them in mind. So you can say, you know what, we had a vet visit last week. I'm actually not going to bring him out at the party I have tonight, because he might still be stressed out from that vet visit where he got 3 inoculations and the vet had to do this weird thing with shooting medicine into his mouth or whatever. I'm actually just going to put him in a crate with a Kong rather than bring him out at the party. Things like that. You can, don't be afraid to manage the situation and not risk putting him in danger. Did that help at all? I hope.
Probably. What if it's a stress that can't be avoided, like moving?
Talk to your vet. Medication can help lower that stress. Stress that can't be avoided, that is also not likely to repeat itself soon. Anyway, I would definitely ask your vet about event medication and go to your vet and say, look, we're planning on moving. We're going to have movers in the house. Just the packing and all of that is going to be stressful. Then there's going to be a drive and a big truck and all of that, and then unpacking at the new house. Your vet has probably also moved at some point in their life and is going to understand that that is a stressful situation and will help you find the right medication for your dog. It might be a nutraceutical, it might be an actual pharmaceutical. They're probably going to recommend you do sort of a trial. If they give you trazodone, for example, they might say, just give it to him when nothing else is going on, just to make sure it doesn't really knock him out completely or something like that. But your vet should absolutely be willing to work with you and find something that makes the whole process easier so that it's not completely out of control. There are obviously some things that are unavoidable and you can't prepare for. For example, in that slide, I had, being hit by a car. That's like, we can't practice and make your dog okay with that. But we just have to know that after that experience, there's going to be a time in the recovery process that we need to lower stresses overall. And so even event medication after the fact to keep the dog calmer while he's healing and help the other minor stressors that he's encountering in his day. I'm looking at my dog Oscar. That's why I keep saying him, because Oscar was a boy. But you can lower their stresses that way. And so things like event medications and that sort of thing can definitely be helped. And again, that relaxation protocol, do the relaxation in the old house while you're packing, do the relaxation as the first thing you do in the new house. So the dog's first association with the new house is like, go here and I relax.
Okay. What do you do if your dog is really anxious, skittish, and won't take treats and doesn't enjoy calming touches?
Again, that would be something I would speak to a veterinary behaviorist about possible medication. If they won't take the treats, I'm assuming you mean that they're not food motivated, so to speak. You can use their regular food. You can use, usually the canned version of food is higher value than kibble or something like that. And you can do that with the relaxation protocol. If you notice, the relaxation protocol has very little actually hands on the dog. There is going to be something that they like. Scent games are really good for dogs because you don't have to touch them in that respect at all. One of my most fearful little, I had a little Chihuahua who was super, super scared and super, super sensitive to the point that if his mom tightened up on the leash at all, not even to the point that it was pulling on him, just that the clip changed position on his neck, that was enough that he considered that punishing. And so we just did nose work with him off leash so that there was no issues with any kind of physical contact from, and he was snuggly. It wasn't that he was scared of her or anything like that. He was just that sensitive. And we just took physical responses out of it. So it's just a matter of, I'm going to put you in this little room and you're going to sniff things out that you find interesting. What they're sniffing out doesn't even have to be food. Most dogs are fairly motivated to find food. And because dogs need food to eat or food to live, there's no such thing as a truly non-food motivated dog because it's just a basic survival instinct. But you can find other things. You can get different perfumes and essential oils and things like that. Check to make sure, obviously, that they're made of ingredients that are safe for the dog to be inhaling. But you can find a wide variety of things. And just the fact that there is a new scent there, the odor can be, that can be enriching enough that it can reduce some of the stress for the dog. But yeah, the relaxation protocol, scent games, things like that don't require hands on the dog. They take a lot of pressure off the dog, and you just look for whatever the dog finds rewarding and reinforcing as far as food goes, as much as you can.
What about iCalm Dog? No, what is it now? iCalm Pets. Well, you can still find it under Through a Dog's Ear, so use that one. And
Yeah.
you know, the music intended to calm dogs.
Yeah, my understanding is that it does have some science backing it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. There have been studies that show that dogs like reggae. Take that for what it's worth. They do like reggae and they like easy listening. I still mentally call it Through a Dog's Ear, but yeah, it is iCalm or something like that now.
Calm Pets.
What they did is they take classical music that probably all of us know from old Bugs Bunny cartoons, and they actually slowed it down to match the tempo of a calm dog's heart rate. And your body as well as your dog's will actually start to mimic that tempo. And so it sort of forces, for lack of a better term, the dog into a more relaxing position. It's not 100% guaranteed. It's definitely in the category, I would say, of might help, couldn't hurt. It's not going to cause a problem. It can sort of provide white noise or filtering out of outside sounds. So if you have a dog who's nervous, it might help dampen things like the trash truck coming, or thunderstorm noises or things like that. And it may be helpful as far as actually calming the dog down. I don't think that I would rely on it only, but I would definitely have it in my toolbox of things to add in to other things.
I'm also wondering if her dog doesn't like touch, would putting a thunder shirt on that is a constant pressure be helpful, or that's considered touch?
I would think, and again, it's going to depend on the dog's specific issues. I would think that probably just getting the thunder shirt on might be more aversive than anything else. I think it's probably worth a try to see how the dog tolerates the thunder shirt or any other snug fitting clothing on them. Some dogs don't like clothing at all, and so a thunder shirt can be aversive in that regard. But I think it's worth a try. You can in time train a dog to be more okay, and even start to enjoy more physical contact with you. But if they're not naturally like that, and in the long run, that in itself doesn't bother you, that's certainly not a requirement for any training to reduce their stress overall.
I mentioned in chat that we have a webinar that veterinary behaviorist Dr. Amie Pike did on stress handling at home. And if you look at our YouTube channel, I think it's in the section on fear.
Yeah.
And that'll give you some ideas for things you can do to practice, for vet visits, for example.
Yeah. And she is wonderful, and is terrific with animals in her care as well. And we work together quite frequently, actually. So that would absolutely be a great webinar to help prep your dog for vet visits, and even the things that you do to prep for vet visits will also help you better understand the things that people do to dogs in general that are actually not normal for dogs to accept. We sort of expect a lot of dogs. And when you look at, well, here's how you prep for handling their ears, or here's how you prep for looking into their mouth, and then you think about how often people grab a dog and like scruff its ears and, looking, oh, here's your bubba, and grab at their mouth. I do it with my own dogs all the time, because I have, doofy pit bulls who love that sort of thing. But not every dog does, and we need to remember that and not expect them to be okay with strangers doing that kind of thing. So you can sort of get them more comfortable with it for vet visits, and it may also help with how they greet strangers who do stupid things to dogs.
Yeah. We also have on our website, there's a grooming page, and at the top of it, there is a video with ideas on how to prepare your dog for grooming, doing different things at home. So that could be helpful too. I had a question when you were showing the video, teaching relaxation. What occurred to me is that the dog not knowing what you want in itself is stressful, or is that just during teaching and then they learn it, and after that?
Yeah, once they learn it, they learn it. Most dogs learn it very, very quickly. And yeah, in the beginning, especially the more trained dogs, you sort of see this moment of, what are you doing? Just tell me what you want. They can get a little frustrated in the beginning. But for the most part, I kind of factored in as eustress. It's a stress that is beneficial to the dog in the long run, in that they learn that doing this simple thing, following the food, which is how a lot of people teach a lot of behaviors to begin with anyway. Following the food is a good thing, and then just do less and you'll get more food. It's such a minimal amount of stress compared to the benefits once they learn that just lie down and do less. They usually pick it up pretty quickly. It's definitely worth the amount of stress in my eyes.
Is it worth putting them in a sit first, or is that in a situation where?
Yeah, I will often do that. If they don't lie down, I will lure them into a sit and then lure them into a down. Sometimes that's easier. I don't like to give any obedience cues. If I say sit and then lure them into a down, there's a risk of adjusting my sit cue. Now, if you don't care what happens, if you say sit and the dog lies down, if that doesn't bother you, that's fine. That wouldn't bother me terribly. It wouldn't bother me at all in your dogs. But I like to have the relaxation separate from any kind of obedience that has sort of a posture that I specifically ask. I want relaxation to just be, just get yourself comfortable. If that means roll over onto one hip, if that means flop on your side, if that means sploot out with all four legs pointing in different directions, whatever is fine.
It's easier in the beginning. Can you lure them into a sit without saying anything or giving a hand signal, and then lure them immediately into a down?
Yes, that's what if the dog really struggles going into a down, I may try and lure them into a sit first. Yeah.
Now, here is a question that I'm really glad is here. Sarah says that she's getting conflicting advice about whether it's okay or helpful to comfort your dog when they're fearful, or if that reinforces fear and triggers.
Thank you for asking that. It is old school to say, do not comfort your dog. I am terrified of flying. If I am flying and my husband puts his arm around me to comfort me, that is not going to make me more likely to be afraid in the future. You cannot reinforce fear. What you can do is reinforce behaviors. So if I am terrified of flying and I start screaming and somebody hands me $100 and then I scream again and somebody hands me $100, my brain might start to go, I should probably keep screaming because that's working out for me. But that scream is going to be different. It's no longer going to be, oh my God, I'm really dying. It's going to turn into, hey, I'm going to scream, somebody hand me $100. The emotion is going to change behind that scream. And so that's classical conditioning, where I start out with this terrified scream and then something really great happens to me. And then I'm terrified, scream again, and then something really great happens to me. And my brain and the emotions inside start switching. And I start to have more positive feelings about this experience. So even if the behavior looks similar, the emotion behind it is very different. Feel free to comfort your dog. Please get your dog out of a position that they are that stressed in if you possibly can. You can't always. You can't be like, I'm sorry, doctor, I can't let you give my dog this rabies shot because they're really nervous. So sorry. I mean, you have to do certain things that are going to be uncomfortable for your dog. But if you comfort them, it makes it less frightening. If you add food or whatever they see as very valuable to the dog, to the situation, the emotions change for the dog and it's not as bad. Does that make sense? Because that's really, really important. And again, it is old school. I remember being told that when I was a new trainer, being told like, they'll think being scared is the right thing. And that's just not true. That's not how fear works. Nobody is afraid because it's the right thing to do. Dogs are not choosing to lunge and bark because they believe that is the moral choice. They're choosing to lunge and bark because they're scared, and that's what feels reinforcing to them in the moment. And if we change the situation so they don't feel the need to lunge and bark anymore, they won't.
Now, look at the fear section on our YouTube channel, and you'll see that concept debunked over and over again. So if that helps any. How much of the where's that game should be practiced at home before trying outside?
You want them to feel very comfortable with the assignment. So the cue is essentially where's the, and then you fill in a random noun. And I like to do at least 3 different things, phone, remote, toy, maybe. And I like to switch hands. So it's where's the phone? And then I pull the phone out and they look and then look back at me and get the treat. And I do that a couple of times. And then I do, okay, where's the phone in my left hand? And I switch hands so that it's clearly not teaching the dog to turn their head a certain direction. Actually look for the item, not just look, not just move your head to the left. And then I switch the nouns. So then it becomes where's the remote? And let's pretend that what is in my hand just magically became a remote, because I want the dog to learn that the cue is where's the, and that last word is actually the least important part of the equation. So it goes from where's the phone to where's the remote, pull out the remote, where's the toy, pull out the toy. And what I want is when I say where's the dog sort of starts looking around. That's when they're clearly not just responding to the movement of my bringing the item out, but actually starting to understand that the cue, where's the, means something is occurring. Once I've got that, then I can start using different items and I can start taking it outside. When I feel like the dog really understands the game, that's when I'm going to bring in the things that are triggering to them. So phone, not triggering. Remote, not triggering. Dog, very possibly triggering. So it's going to take me being certain that the dog really understands the game before I go for a walk and say, where's the dog? And do it that way.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, dogs are really, really good at picking up on our cues and our patterns. And in fact, they're good at picking up on them before we realize that we have fallen into a pattern. So I don't want him to learn where's the means there's danger coming. I want him to just learn something's out there. So it could be a phone on the walk, and feel free to take your phone and do the exercise on your walk with the phone in your hand. I don't want him to think, oh, she said, where's the thing I'm going to bark at and snarl at. I want him to go, oh, where's the thing that I look for? Then look back at her.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Here's another good question. How do you feel about doggy daycare or dog parks for socializing and exercise?
Oh, such a long, complicated.
It's very involved, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that there are some dogs that really enjoy playing with other dogs. I think that those dogs are in the minimum. Or in the minority. I don't think that most dogs like playing with strange dogs every day. I don't think that most dog parks or daycares are the right way to socialize a dog, which I talked about in my last webinar about bringing home a new puppy or a new adopted dog. It's kind of semantics, but the socialization window closes at 4 months. So up to 4 months, you're teaching your dog new experiences can be fun. And after 4 months, you're teaching your dog new experiences might not be horrifying. And it seems minimal, but that's a pretty big distinction for your dog. So after 4 months, you're not actually socializing, you're just doing sort of damage control.
Well, and also, if you believe there's a secondary fear period, you can cause new issues.
Correct. Yeah, somewhere in the 8 to 9 month range, you can have more bad experiences that stick around, and fear periods and socialization windows and all that. It's all sort of a guess because there's nothing like stabilized, but for the most part, we do think that the main socialization window closes at 4 months. That's when most adult dogs see puppyhood ending. They stop treating other dogs like babies at 4 months. Dogs are a little bit more established as far as who they are at that age. And so it becomes more damage control, and the more experiences they have, the more it's about helping them recover from that experience and not just teaching them that that experience is going to be a positive thing. So assuming that you find this great daycare or dog park that has only amazingly appropriate social dogs, first of all, if you find such a place, please let me know, because I sure don't know of any. But then you've got those, those first 2 months, really, because you've got up until 4 months, and most of us don't get our puppies until at least 8 weeks. You really only have a limited window to make sure that all of their experiences with dogs are very positive. And then after that time period, again, it's just damage control. And so then you're dealing with dogs who may not really like to be there. When you look at body language, a lot of dogs are actually stressed, stress versus eustress in those situations. I much, much, much prefer small groups where dogs get to establish relationships. You might have a friend, a new friend bring a new dog in every once in a while, but it's really far better to have a set group of doggy friends that your dog can play with, that they can establish those relationships. My youngest dog, Violet, is 6 months old. I have a friend who has several other dogs. So Violet has established relationships, not just with the dogs in my house, but with 2 little French bulldogs. She knows she is not supposed to mess with the senior pug. She knows that the little Pomeranian, aka Angry Dust Bunny, will cut her if she gets too close. She also knows that there's a Malamute who lives there that will intercede if she gets too obnoxious and somebody tries to correct her. Her buddy Thor will protect her. There's established relationships there. And that is really, really good for her. It's huge differences in play styles and all of those animals, but we know how everyone is. We know that everyone's going to handle things and be appropriate in their responses and be fine. It's not a matter of throwing her into the deep end. It's kind of like in people. Personally, I am extremely introverted. I do not want to be put in any nightclub anywhere in the world. There are people who enjoy that. And I suppose that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. But not everyone is going to enjoy that. And I think in dogs, it's the same way, where you can't rely on those things as a means of socialization or exercise or what have you, without assuming that there's going to be some stress involved.
We also see a lot of reactive dogs who have been either attacked at a dog park or daycare, or even if they're not involved in the fight, it's still stressful, and their attitude toward other dogs may be the same after that.
Yeah, and I don't know why people are as surprised by that as if I witness a car accident, I don't have to be in it to be shook up. And yet we think like, well, he wasn't even in the fight. Okay. I wasn't in the car accident. It's still scary. So I've seen, when Violet was a baby, 2 other dogs got into a scuffle near her. And man, I think I force fed her an entire hot dog immediately after, because it was, yes, that was scary, but it made a whole hot dog happen here, because it was all I could do to make the experience very positive for her. And she wasn't involved. She's always had just about enough head on her shoulder that when dogs get into something, she just gets out of there. She walks away. But I still needed to make that experience as positive as possible so that she didn't start to think, yeah, but something scary could happen near me when other dogs are around.
Mhm. In doggy daycare, Robin Bennett, who is a national, maybe international expert on doggy daycare, kind of says that people are always asking her, but my dog seems so excited to go. And she'll answer, yes, your dog may be excited to go for an hour.
Right.
6 hours later, they've had more than enough. They don't want to be there anymore. And there aren't that many good daycares. There just aren't.
Yeah.
When you throw 30 dogs into a room with one or two people, or even if you had a ton of people, that's too many dogs.
Yeah.
All to have the same play style, all be friendly. It just doesn't, it's not easy.
Yeah. And yeah, you cannot judge their initial reaction to how it's affecting them long term. Because I also hear that same kind of thing in relation to things like prong collars, where people will say, like, my dog loves getting the prong collar on. Yeah, the dog Oscar there, that's in that picture, I used a prong collar on him before I crossed over, and he was the same way. He loved getting his prong collar on. But you know what? I love pizza, and I still burn my mouth on it every time. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. I still eat it enthusiastically. That doesn't mean it's not causing damage to my mouth. The smart thing to do would be to learn how to not eat it when it's quite that hot. The smart thing to do would be to not put the dog in the situation of being stressed and in pain to begin with, and not ask them to work through that. And just, like, Oscar liked training more than he cared that he was being hurt, because he was just a hard dog in that regard. Not everyone's going to react that way, and not everyone is going to be able to recover as quickly as Oscar did. I was very, very fortunate in that regard with him. But just because someone enjoys something doesn't mean that part of it doesn't also hurt. Watch a professional.
You also explain what you meant by crossover.
Crossover means that before I was a professional trainer, when I was just working with my own dogs, I followed expert advice to use punitive methods. Most likely I was using a prong collar or things, corrective collars,
choke collar,
like that. Yeah, I used prong, but choke or electric collars are two other options that are methods that use either intentional negative reinforcement or positive punishment as the purpose of the collar, in order to teach the dog things. I'm not opposed to negative reinforcement or positive punishment. It depends on the level. Like saying to your dog, hey, stop, that's positive punishment. Technically, I'm fine with that. But but I don't want to intentionally intimidate them. I don't want to hurt them. And collars like that, they are trying to avoid the pain of the collar, and that's what's getting them to do what we want them to do. Quite honestly, Oscar there got pneumonia 1 year and could not do any exercise. He was extremely limited on what activity he could do. And so I decided to clicker train him to do a really beautiful, like that military heel where they're right at your knee and gazing up at you. And I did, because he was having a hard time breathing, I couldn't do a lot of physical activity and I didn't want anything on his throat. And so I taught myself how to clicker train him to do a beautiful heel. And it was very fast and very effective. And I went, wait, why am I doing something that hurts this creature that I love more than life when I could just click and treat? It just, like, at that point I crossed over and started educating myself more, and since have gotten numerous certifications and lots of education on the subject and that sort of thing, and since became a professional. But yeah, it just once I realized that I could do everything without causing him intentional pain, it just didn't make any sense to me to try and justify continuing that use.
Again, you have
nothing.
reactive dogs who
Yeah.
learn that because every time they saw another dog, their person got anxious and they felt the pain of the choking of the choke collar, the zapping of the electric collar.
Mhm.
And then it's like the other dogs in their mind caused that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
There's
mean,
literally nothing that I can't teach a dog to do using positive methods or dog friendly methods, that I need to use a prong collar or a shock collar on or anything like that. And just like the example you just gave, I have had people come to me and say, the rescue required us to use a prong collar with this dog. And I have said, I am not going to tell you to go against the legal contract that you signed, but I am going to tell you, you will not have that prong collar on this dog in my class. And when I explained that in detail, what was going on, almost every time the person has said, now that you're saying that, we've actually seen an increase in the dog's reactivity because we think we're saying, no, don't bark. And what the dog recognizes is when I see that dog over there, it hurts. Or when I'm pulling on leash to go greet a child, this is the one that scares me the most.
yeah.
Dog starts out being friendly, wanting to approach a child, and they pull on the leash and their neck starts hurting. And they learn when I approach children, it hurts. I don't want any dog think, I've got a 5-year-old kid. Please don't make your dog think that she loves dogs. I want dogs to think, hey, there's a kid over there. Bet mom has hot dog right here. I love kids. They make cheese happen right here. That's what I want.
Yeah, dogs learn by association, so they may feel that children make that pain happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what you don't want.
Yeah.
Anyway, I keep referring to our website, but under About Us, there is what is positive training. And you can click on a chart that shows you, I think you still can. Anyway, it shows you the differences in how a positive trainer looks at things and how a compulsion trainer looks at things. There's also a slideshow on the in the sidebar about positive training, and it would be worth looking at those things so that you have a better understanding of why it makes sense to use positive training.
Yeah. It can be really tricky too when you're looking for a trainer online and you go to their website.
Oh, they get very sneaky with the terms.
They're so sneaky, and you want to buzzwords, right? Like people, I will frequently call myself a force-free trainer, or fear-free trainer, or what have you. And there are people who are like, force-free. I didn't force him. I just shock him when he does the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not force. Yeah, it is to me, but they feel justified in saying it isn't. So you kind of want to look at what pictures they're showing on their website. Sometimes they're sort of noticeably not showing pictures of the dog's throat. Like they're only posting pictures where the dog is in this beautiful off-leash heel and the person's knee happens to be crossing, so you can't see what the dog is wearing, or they say things, but they don't explicitly say, we don't use this type of equipment. Call them out on it. Ask them, do you use corrective collars? What do you use here? On my website, I have a page that has 3 questions that I believe were initially posited by Jean Donaldson It's what will you do when my dog gets it right? What will you do when my dog gets it wrong? And is there any other less aversive way to get the same thing you're doing?
That's good.
Yeah, and again, that's posted on my website, so you can go, if you want, Deborah, I'll share that page with you later, so you can grab it and steal it for your dog's friend as well. But you want someone who is giving the dog what they want for behavior that you want, who is preventing the dog from getting what they want for behavior you don't want, and preventing the dog from having access to behavior you don't want. I will often say to people, management is not cheating. Leash is management, right? If I think my dog is going to run away, it's not cheating to put my dog on leash. But that means he can't run away. So I'm preventing that from being a possibility. So I don't have to correct him for running away, because he didn't, because he was on leash to begin with. And then, is there any less aversive way? Hopefully not, but I am always looking for an easier way, a way that is easier on the dog to learn. It's one of the reasons I do that relaxation protocol so much. Once I learned it, once I saw how effective it is, and it's been 6 or 7 years since I first saw it and was like, whoa, this works for everything.
Yeah.
It's so easy. It's so easy for people to remember all the steps of. It's not stressful for you. It's not stressful for the dog. I don't know of an easier way to teach it, but if I find one that is easier on them to get them into the position without that minor stress that we talked about a few minutes ago, that still has the effect of not messing up a sit or a down or anything like that, I will absolutely switch to whatever the easier way is. I always want to do the least stressful thing for the dog, and I will always look for an even more so less stressful thing, if that's not too many conflicting words there. But that's what you're looking for in general. And don't hesitate. I would love if someone called me up or sent me an email and said, hey, can I ask you these questions? Tell me what the answer. I would love that. It's on my website, so I would probably honestly just share the page on the website, but it's pretty rare that I have people ask me that sort of question about what methods I use, and I'm always pleased when they do, because it means they're not just desperate to get help, they're thinking about what kind of help they're getting.
Sarah, if you are still there with your fear issue, there is a pretty well-known local trainer, and the dog was in a crate whining. And the dog was obviously in stress, uncomfortable. And what this trainer did was pick up the crate and drop it back down to the floor as a way of stopping the behavior. Now, what did that do to the dog's fear and stress and unhappiness? You can't help a dog get over fear, for example, or reactivity or any sort of anxiety by associating it with something worse.
Scaring them more.
Your crate dropped. I mean, it doesn't make any logical sense. And yet people think trainers are experts, and if that's what they're doing, then, yeah. Do look at that page on the website. Maybe that'll help. And if not, contact Amie, contact us, and we'll explain it better.
Yeah, Sarah, if you need more help understanding that, it is a complicated and somewhat counterintuitive thing. And again, it's a very popular misconception that you should not comfort a dog in fear. So you are not the only one thinking that by any stretch. And I am more than happy to discuss that further with you if you still need convincing.
The other thing that occurred to me when we were talking about positive training, and there are trainers, well, first of all, there are collars that trainers are now calling training collars. That can be a choke, it can be a prong, it can be an electronic collar. They're just using a different term. Mm-hmm. And also there are trainers who consider themselves to be balanced. Mm-hmm. They're giving treats for behavior they want, but they're also punishing for behavior they don't want, which you would think, oh, well, that makes sense, except it doesn't, because your dog looks at you as unpredictable. They can still get in trouble and not know why. You want to be the source of good things for your dog. You don't want to be the source of punishment. You know, it just makes a huge difference in your relationship and in how much fun training is. So anyway, that's, what is it called? The soapbox? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get off our soapbox, but it's really important to both of us. We do have a referral list of trainers on the website if you want to use that. If you want more information on, like, here's my dog situation, which of these trainers should I use, you can email and, you know, we'll help you with that. Amie, thank you very much for.
You are very welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. See you next time. Bye, Amie.
Thank you.